I got a story for you. It was my grandparents' anniversary, and during the late morning, my mom got a call on her phone for someone that wanted to talk to me. I answered the call, and it was a woman named Jessica Wilson from a company called Global Concierge Services who offered me a job position to help pick up groceries and make donations for the disabled. It sounded fantastic, and I was willing to get a move on, as I was a high school graduate who hasn't been to college yet. Jessica also told me that she'll provide me with a phone service so I can receive calls and such from WhatsApp and mailed me an HSBC money order for over 4,000 Canadian dollars. My grandparents, sibling, and mother were rooting for me to finally take the first step. However, my grandparents had various questions like what I'll do with the money, what do I do with it, and such. A couple days after that, my grandfather was online with my cousin and proceeded to talk to me. Apparently, this was all a scam that has been going around my country in Canada. He then came over and had a look at the money order I received. Jessica's last name was different than the one she had given me, and when you call the phone number, it goes to an automated voicemail message that clearly doesn't have respond button commands. In other words, a free voicemail. Not only that, but if I cashed in that money order, my bank account would go into a negative number, causing me to owe the bank tons of money. He told me to throw the money order away. Ever since that day, I decided not to respond to emails on my Gmail nor any calls for job interviews, but just to go out and try to find a job in person. I'm going to college on May 4th as I'm writing this, and I do not have a job yet. And the only thing close to having a job was an interview at a liquor store, and that didn't bother to ring me back either. But thanks for reading my story. And this is a great warning to people to stay safe when looking for jobs and different employment opportunities online. And we thank him for sharing his story and hope that his future looks a lot brighter. I would have laughed at you years ago if you told me I would be caught up in a romance scam. But here I am, a victim. It's taken me 3 years to finally share my story. I met Jack on a game site on Facebook. Yes, Farmville. It started off innocently. We friended each other, and we met on the Farmville group fan page on Facebook. We would send each other gifts, etc., to help our farms. That friendship was casual. He would send me gifts for my virtual farm, and I would send him some as well. After a couple weeks, he messaged me thanking me, and then asked me if we could get to know each other since we are technically friends. I never thought much about my Facebook friends. I friended anyone and accepted requests all for this stupid game. So when Jack started chatting, I finally checked his profile out. There wasn't much on it. A few pictures of him and a military background that said Army Strong or some kind of logo like that. He said he was 40 and he was in the Army and deployed to Afghanistan. He said playing the games kept him busy in his downtime. I at the time was 34 and knew nothing about the military life or what they did and didn't do. I had never dated a military man, so I had no idea and certainly didn't know about scammers on Facebook. He told me he was a widow, his wife died from cancer, and he had a daughter named Sarah who was 10, and she was staying with his mother in Florida, her grandmother, while he was deployed. At first, I found it weird. He was so forthcoming about his life story. I mean, within the first few minutes of chat, he told me some very personal stuff, but I figured maybe he was lonely being deployed and he had not chatted to a woman or anyone in a while in person. I don't know really what I thought. I told him a little about me. I was single, no kids, and I worked at Walmart. Nothing exciting. I was working while going to school part time to become a radiologist. I wasn't looking for love or anything in my life like that. I had a busy life school, work, playing Farmville on my downtime, kind of my hobby of sorts. He asked me to send some pictures of myself, and I told him my photos are in my online album. And if he wanted to see my face, my profile photo was of a cat, so he wanted to see what I really look like. I told him again, just check out my albums. He said he wanted to save them, and I asked him why. He then laid on this thick BS story of how it was so beautiful and no woman compares to my beauty. Honestly, I laughed, but then I thought, well, how sweet. He was a handsome guy and he was being nice. We chatted once every few days, and then started chatting more and more on my nights off of work and nights I had off school. Normally, Saturday was my free day. We would chat late into the night. As time went on, we chatted and shared our lives. like a normal relationship of two people dating, almost like we would set up Saturday nights as our date night for online chatting. He said due to being in the military, he couldn't video chat, and honestly, I was glad, as I didn't really ever video chat. And keep in mind, this was back when video chatting wasn't such a common thing as it is today. After all, back then I still had a flip phone. He would talk to me all the time. I would wake up with "Hello, my queen," and "Good night, dear" messages via Facebook. Over time, yes, I had feelings for him. I would share with him my frustration about school and my job. God, I hated my job. He would listen and tell me that God had a plan for me and that I was smart and beautiful. He encouraged me all through my classes. Then one night, he put my photo and his photo together and made a picture of us with hearts around it. He said that one day soon we will be together forever, and he couldn't wait to be with me. He then told me he loved me. I was partly on cloud nine and partly just crazy to be paid attention to. Most men just kind of skip me over. I told him, well, when he gets home, we'll meet. He then told me that they were going on a mission the day after tomorrow and it was very dangerous. During this time, troops in Afghanistan were being killed all the time. I was scared, I was worried, and part of me did start to fall in love with him. We talked the night before his mission and we prayed online together. He told me he loved me and he wanted to have a family with me. Well, by this time, yes, I was falling in love with this man. After this, I didn't hear from him for 4 days. We went from talking all the time to nothing. No messages, no words, no texts, nothing. He didn't even work on his little Farmville farm. Then, I ended up getting a message from a man I didn't know. He said he was Jack's commander and that Jack had been shot during a mission and he was at a Kabul military hospital. He gave me the name of the hospital. I Googled it online and sure enough, it was real. He told me Jack was in critical condition and sent me a picture of Jack laying in a coma. His face was covered with tubes and wires, but it kind of did look like him. He told me Jack needs emergency evacuation to the USA for care and that he is so pressed for funds due to the war and family and friends must pay the evacuation. I told this man that his mother lives in Florida and he said that they tried, but she doesn't have the money to pay it. And then he told me Jack's mother had a heart attack from the stress. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. I ended up asking this man how much was the evacuation, and he said it would cost $2,000. It would have to be paid via Western Union to the pilot evacuating the medical team. I told him, give me the information and I'll see what I can do about getting the money. He gave me the name of this supposed special agent in New York who handles all payments for military flight evacuations. I told him I would let him know tomorrow. I ended up emailing the US military from an Army website I found, and I found a bunch of questions about inquiries and recruiting. So I sent them over an email and it went to a recruitment office. I didn't hear back from them though. And the next day, the man said Jack's health was failing, and if I wanted to save his life, I better hurry. I felt pressure. He sent photos of what was supposed to be Jack's brain scan and said he was bleeding from the brain and he would likely die if he can't get a flight out to the USA. I was sleep deprived, upset, and so stupid. I got cash out of my savings and money from my savings that I was using for school and wired the money. It went as follows: four $500 transactions, all to the same person in New York. This was before online transfers. So I went to the actual Western Union and requested the money be sent. The cashier never asked me the who, what, when, where, or why. They just sent it for me and gave me a receipt. The man told me that Jack was being evacuated, but his condition is getting worse. He said he would let me know as soon as he arrived in the USA and confirm what hospital Jack has been transported to. I waited 2 days. They went by and nothing. I was sick. Finally, this same man messaged me and returned my reply. He said Jack died while trying to evacuate him. His brain bleed was so bad they couldn't control it. He sent me a picture of a casket with an American flag and said it was Jack. I then had a total mental breakdown. I called in sick to work. I stopped my studies and I fell apart. I tried in frantic to figure out where he was. How could I contact his mother? What about his family? What can I do? Finally, a day after, the Army recruiting office finally replied to me and told me it was a scam. I ended up calling the number on the email that the recruitment office gave me. and they confirmed for me that it was in fact a scam and there were no known deaths in Afghanistan the day that I was told Jack died, and there was nobody by that name deployed to Afghanistan. I think the recruiter felt bad for me because that information shouldn't have been given out to me. But here I was talking to a real recruiter that I even Googled the number to double check and make sure it was real, and he felt bad for me. He told me I'd been scammed and he was apologetic. But I was confused, lost, and upset. I went to Jack's profile to send a message and I saw something that shocked and confused me. Jack was no longer Jack. The profile had changed names and was now Miller Johnson. Different military man, different photo and name, different location, and different about section. I messaged the profile and was immediately blocked. I ended up going to Western Union. They told me it was a scam, and they had me file a fraud report. I lost everything, including my mind. I ended up taking a leave from work for 2 weeks and pushing school back due to the loss of my savings for a whole year. It took me almost over a year to start school up again, and I had to work to save up all the money I'd lost. Mentally, I'm unable to trust for a very long time. And finally, years later, I can say I met my husband online. I was skittish at first, but we met in person within 2 weeks of chatting and he was real. So, my thoughts? Yes, you can find love online, but you can also find scammers. Never give up the search for a good man. Some of them are found online. And we'd like to thank her for sharing her story. We'd like to thank both of these target victims for sharing their stories. If you'd like your story narrated into a video, you can find us on Facebook under Scamming Scammers Action. You can also find us via gmail.com, scammingscammers@gmail.com. We do check our email twice a week. Appreciate you guys uploading your stories and sharing with us. If you need any help, you can find us under Scamming Scammers Action on Facebook. Stay safe.